This is the Apple Watch Series 10, Apple's thinnest, largest and newest smartwatch. Now, let's face it, 10 years is a fair amount of time to try and perfect something. So, have Apple finally managed to create something really special in these 10 years? Kinda. Let me explain in this video where I review its design, its specs, test out its battery life to find out if Apple have created something that can last for more than a day, compare its heart rate sensor accuracy against an ECG chest strap, talk about what's good about it, what's not so good about it. You need 3 separate apps to make the most of the Apple Watch and much more to try and find out if the Apple Watch Series 10 is worth buying this year. Right, before I jump into the nitty-gritty details of the Apple Watch Series 10, I just wanted to bring you up to speed with the prices, specs and options for this year. Now, as I mentioned briefly at the start, there's a new larger size for the Series 10, which comes in at 46mm and starts at $429 or 429 pounds, with the smaller one coming in at 42mm costing around $399 or 399 pounds. Now, there's LTE or cellular options available as well, but the prices increase by an extortionate $100. The prices can go through the roof. I tried to customize and create the most expensive Apple Watch Series 10 and the price was easily over $1,000. It's insane. Now, I've got the larger 46mm version here in this new jet black color, which I really like. And for me personally, I would have spec'd this 46mm jet black version with one of the Nike sports band. I absolutely love those, especially this blue flame one, which wasn't available for quick delivery, so I had to go with the standard black silicon band that came with the 46mm version. Okay, so let's talk about the design and specs of the Apple Watch Series 10. Now, this follows Apple's classic design philosophy of a rectangular watch, but the key difference this year is that we've got the larger 46mm version, which I say larger, it's just 1mm more than last year's Series 9, and it's also Apple's thinnest Apple Watch ever, which again I should mention is just around 1mm less than last year's. Now, this watch, just like any other Apple product, just feels extremely well designed, and you know what, every time I interacted with this watch, the word swish just kept popping in my head. Now, inside it's running the new S10 processor from Apple, which from a specs point of view looks almost the same as last year's S9 chip, and this can go up to 2000 nits in peak brightness and as low as 1 nit when you're in darker areas, which can help conserve some battery, especially when you're asleep. Now, all of that stuff might sound similar to last year's Series 9, but the main difference this year is that the Series 10 has this wide angle OLED technology where the screen is up to 40% brighter when viewed at an angle. But I've personally not noticed anything spectacular about this wide angle OLED technology. Maybe because when I'm looking at the Apple Watch Series 10, I'm looking at it dead straight, just like most other people. But speaking of displays, this is made of scratch resistant and chemically strengthened glass, which is exactly the same as last year's Series 9. It's also IP6X rated and it has 5 atmospheres of water resistance, which is good for around 50 meters of water depth. Now, there's also a couple of new sensors present on the Series 10 that weren't present in last year's Series 9. So you've got a new water depth gauge, a water temperature sensor for swims, and access to Oceanic Plus for snorkeling activities. And at the back, you've got Apple's proprietary suite of sensors for measuring things like your heart rate, blood oxygen, sleep, and so on. And we'll get to the optical heart rate sensor accuracy tests later on in this video. But overall, from a hardware and specs point of view, I wouldn't necessarily upgrade from the Series 9 to the Series 10 because of those marginal increments, except if you were into open water sports, in which case some of those new water depth sensors and water temperature sensors might be more meaningful to you. Okay, so let's talk about the smart features and functionalities on the Apple Watch Series 10. Now, you've got almost all of the apps that you can think of available on this watch, just like the previous years, given you've got Apple's App Store pre-built into this smartwatch. Now, you've also got things like Smart Stack, which you can access by just rotating the crown. And what this does is it serves up widgets for different apps based on things like the time of the day, any appointments in your calendars, and so on. Now, watchOS 11, which comes pre-built in the Apple Watch Series 10, comes with a bunch of new things. There's too many to list in this video, but the key upgrades are definitely around health, performance, and training features and metrics. So there's new things like the training load, the vital apps, custom swimming features, and you can also now pause your activity rings if you want to take a break. Oh, and another cool feature available now on watchOS 11 is the check-in feature, where you can notify someone when you arrive at a destination. Now, Siri is available here again on the Watch Series 10, and Siri has improved over the last few years, but I feel it's still not where it needs to be. I think that the suite of smart features is amazing on the Watch Series 10, but it shouldn't be one of the main reasons for you to upgrade over last year's Series 9, especially when watchOS 11 is available to download and install on some of the older Apple Watches. Okay, so let's talk about all of the things that the Apple Watch Series 10 can track from a health, performance, and recovery perspective. So you've got your usual list of activities here available on the Apple Watch, like your strength training at the gym, indoor cycling, outdoor cycling, running, but there's also a bunch of other activities available here, including snow sports like skiing, snowboarding, and so on. There's also, thankfully, a dedicated HIIT activity here where you can customize and exactly tailor the amount of rounds and the number of exercises you want to do in each round. Now, this watch also comes with a brand new Oceanic Plus app with some fun new snorkeling features, and while underwater you'll be able to track your time, maximum depth, direction, and other metrics. Right, so I've just tried to log into the Oceanic Plus app on my Apple Watch Series 10, but I'm just stuck on this login screen on my iPhone. I mean, my iPhone won't even recognize the Apple Watch Series 10 being there. And both my iPhone and the Apple Watch are up to date with the latest software, connected to internet and all of that stuff. So I did a quick search online only to find quite a lot of people are facing the exact same issue. So Oceanic or Apple definitely need to sort this one out as soon as possible. Back to the main video. Now, there's another new app called the Tides app available on the Apple Watch Series 10, using which you can check conditions for over 100,000 beaches and 5,000 surf spots around the world, including high and low tides, rising and falling tides, sunrise as well as sunset times, and that is really cool to see here. Now, there's also an ECG sensor that you can use to detect signs of atrial fibrillation, which is great. There's also the training load metric available on the Apple Watch Series 10, which analyzes your heart rate whilst you're resting as well as doing activities to give you feedback on whether you're under training or overtraining. Oh, and I mentioned sleep tracking earlier in this video, and the watch gives you an okay amount of information when it comes to sleep. Now, the health app on the iPhone shows just a bit more information than what the Apple Watch shows, and after a few days of sleep, the Apple Watch and the health app will generate a baseline level for vital metrics. But there's no sleep profile feature or anything like that available on the Apple Watch Series 10 or on the Apple Health app on my iPhone, and I just feel like this watch and the app that comes with it on my iPhone just doesn't give me enough personalized and tailored recommendations in improving my sleeping habits, especially when I compare this to something like a Samsung smartwatch, a Google smartwatch, or even sports watches from Garmin and Polar, which give quite a lot of detail into how I can improve my sleeping habits and trends. And that actually brings me on to some of the annoying things about the Apple Watch Series 10. Now, this is one of the most annoying things about any Apple Watch, not just the Apple Watch Series 10. When you first try to set the smartwatch up, you'll quickly realize you need not just one or two apps on your iPhone. You need three separate apps to make the most of the Apple Watch. You've got the Watch app for changing all of your Apple Watch settings, the Fitness app to view your performance and fitness metrics, and then there's the Health app to access health metrics like sleep, heart rate data, and so on. And I fail to understand why Apple can't integrate all of those things into one powerful app. So I mentioned Apple Health Plus a few seconds ago, and this is where Apple have unfortunately followed the likes of Google and Fitbit in setting up a paywall to access things like guided workouts, meditation programs, as well as trying to build a fitness program. And Apple are charging users $9.99 or £9.99 per month to access all of these things, whereas you've got brands like Samsung and Garmin providing all of these things for free to all of their users. So Again, another frustrating thing when it comes to the Apple Watch Series 10. Now, if you use strength training gloves with wrist supports, the crown on the Apple Watch Series 10, especially on the 46mm version, can be pressed very easily, and this accidentally activates Siri every time, and you will only realize it if you happen to notice the small circle at the bottom of the screen. It's been super frustrating to me because the watch just keeps vibrating whenever Siri is activated when I'm trying to do one rep after the next. It's just super annoying. Now, I talked about all of the apps and smart features available on the Apple Watch Series 10, but you know what? watchOS 11 still doesn't have a full-blown WhatsApp app, but on the Apple Watch Series 10 and some of the previous watches, you can only reply to incoming WhatsApp messages, which is quite frustrating, and I don't know why watchOS and Apple are so inflexible with things like this. It's not all negative though. Here are some cool features about the Apple Watch Series 10. Now, the Apple Watch Series 10 has a new translator app, which is super handy if you're traveling abroad. So, for example, if I'm traveling to Spain and if I bump into you, I might say things like, "Don't be shy from pressing the subscribe button." Now, I really like Apple's focus on mental health and well-being, and the Apple Watch Series 10 prompted me during the day as well as at the end of the day to log my mood and the reasons behind my mood at that point in time, ranging from very unpleasant to very pleasant. And it's got this entire section called State of Mind within the Health app as well, which gives a whole heap of information on mental health and well-being. Now, this is not new, but it's still really cool. The Apple Watch Series 10 can detect high noise levels and give off an alert. Now, this is pretty accurate. I was at a wedding recently and we had a Ceilidh instructor, and those of you who don't know what a Ceilidh is, it's a traditional Scottish dance, and the Apple Watch just constantly started giving off alerts due to the high noise levels from the live band that was playing at the time. That is amazing to see. Now, the Series 10 is Apple's fastest charging watch. I mean, this thing can go up to 80% charge in just 30 minutes, and you could get a full 8 hours sleep by charging this thing for just around 8 to 10 minutes, which is super handy if you're wanting to go to bed really quickly but don't want to wait for a long time for this watch to charge. Okay, so let's talk about the battery life of the Series 10. Now, Apple claimed that this watch can last for up to 18 hours in normal mode and up to 36 hours in battery saver mode. And if you think that's quite poor and disappointing, hold on to that thought for a minute. So when I test wearables on this channel, I test them to their maximum potential because quite a lot of the manufacturers, they put caveats around how these things should be used to maximize battery lives. And looking at the Series 10, it lost around 13% battery every night whilst I was sleeping. And this was when blood oxygen measurements were also turned on. And around 10.5% during activities, which included a mixture of indoor strength training activities at the gym, as well as using the watch's GPS for outdoor running. Now, overall, the Series 10 lasted for around 40 hours on a single charge in the first few days, but when I started installing and using the apps that I actually needed, I've started getting between 30 and 40 hours in the last few weeks. Now, that is still way more than what Apple claimed, which is 18 hours on a single charge. And your mileage will obviously vary compared to mine. And I don't know if it's just the 46mm version performing better than Apple's own claim, but I think it's quite refreshing and interesting to see a manufacturer like Apple exceed their own performance claims. So well done to Apple. Okay, so let's talk about the optical heart rate sensor accuracy of the Apple Watch Series 10. And I've been using Polar's H10 chest strap to benchmark my heart rate readings, and this is often considered as the gold standard for heart rate measurement. Let's start off with outdoor running, and overall it looks like a really good match with the chest strap. There were some minor deviations between the Series 10 and the chest strap when it came to the rise in my heart rate at the start of the run, and the first and second peaks were also a little bit sketchy, but after that the Series 10 was almost always in sync with the chest strap, and there's just a difference of 1 to 2 beats per minute after those first 2 peaks, and it's detected all of the intervals in my run. Now, this is a pretty good result when it comes to the Series 10 for outdoor running. Okay, so let's look at strength training exercises, and this is where I usually find wrist-based optical heart rate sensors start to struggle. But the Apple Watch Series 10 did really well. I mean, just look at that heart rate chart. It's solidly locked onto my heart rate when I compare it to the Polar H10 chest strap. It's picked up all of the intervals as I completed a set, rested, and then moved on to the next. I mean, this is a really good result. And overall, I'm really impressed with the heart rate sensor accuracy on the Series 10. I think it's probably the best accuracy I've seen thus far, especially for strength training activities. Then I think it performs better than the Garmin Venue 3 that I reviewed very recently. So well done to Apple. Let's quickly look at the GPS accuracy of the Series 10, and this comes with only a single band antenna that can latch onto multiple satellite systems for location tracking. And I was curious to see how it performed in some of my outdoor runs, and looking at one of my runs, the Series 10 did fine. It tracked me on the correct side of the road as well as the running track for the most part. There were some minor deviations where it kept flicking me onto the left side and then the right side of the road when I was just on one side. And here, when I was running next to the river, it stayed locked onto my position, and it stayed with me even when I went a bit deeper into the city with some shops and buildings on either side of narrow roads. Now overall, I think that the GPS accuracy of the Apple Watch Series 10 is fine for general outdoor activities, but I think it's high time Apple now installed a dual band antenna in their Apple Watch, given its competitors, especially Samsung, have now gone ahead and installed dual band antenna in their smartwatches for better outdoor location accuracy. So then, has Apple created something truly special with the Series 10 here, and is this worth buying? Now, I think that the Series 10 looks and feels amazing, especially in this larger 46mm version available here. The watchOS 11 also brings a bunch of new features which just elevates the user experience of the Series 10. The optical heart rate sensor accuracy is amazing, and the battery life is quite good at 1.5 days with fairly heavy usage, which actually exceeds Apple's own claim of 18 hours. It's almost everything everyone has been asking for now packaged up in the Series 10. But I wouldn't necessarily upgrade to the Series 10 if I already bought the Series 9 last year or even the Series 8 the year before that, unless I really wanted the larger display, which is only available now on the Series 10, the marginal gain in battery life, as well as the bunch of new water sensors that are only available in the Watch Series 10. Now, if you own or have a much older Apple Watch than the Apple Watch Series 10, 9 or 8, I would definitely recommend watching my full in-depth review of the Garmin Venue 3, which has an amazing battery life. Garmin claim it can last for up to 14 days, and it has a really good balance between smartwatch capabilities as well as the sports features, and is compatible with iPhones. So, alright, so I just wanted to say thanks to all of the subscribers of this channel, and to new viewers. No te avergüences de presionar el botón de suscripción. Especially if you don't want to miss out on my epic comparison between the Apple Watch Series 10, the Garmin Venue 3, Google's Pixel Watch 3 and Samsung's Galaxy Watch 7 to find out which premium smartwatch is coming out on top this year. See you in the next one.